The Monday, December 20th special Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can we all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I don't have any announcements this evening other than the one agenda item that we have here. Before we really get started in this, I would be looking for a motion to start the discussion regarding the DCR letter and proposal.
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. As we have remote participation, can I, oh, wait a minute, we're not going to vote on it yet. Now it's time for discussion, now that it's been opened, sorry.
Okay.
Got ahead of myself, too caffeinated. And I see that there is a lot of people that are currently here that would like to speak on this matter. Prior to actually opening up to public comment, I kind of wanted to go around through this board to see if we can get a idea or a feel or a consensus and actually read off the, should I start by reading off the letter that Matt was kind enough to write?
Well, for the purposes of context, it's probably a good exercise.
All right. So in our previous meeting, we had asked Matt to reach out a letter to be sent off to DCR. It reads, comments on the proposed Southern New England trunk line. Comments on the proposed Southern New England trunk line trail project, to whom it may concern. We'd like to express our strong views on one aspect of the above captioned project, specifically the proposal to install paved surfaces along 6 miles of the Southern New England trunk line trail from the Connecticut border to the Depot Street trailhead in Douglas. It is true that the department staff and members of the engineering consultancy noted during their presentation on December 7th, 2021, that they are not advocating for pavement in comparison to other trail surface improvement approaches. It was also clear, however, from the conversational context of the public meeting and the documents presented by various project staff members that the staff viewed pavement as the preferred solution for shared access, budget, and maintenance purposes. We believe that pavement is an unacceptable material for the SNETT. The SNETT crosses many areas where an abundance of uncommon plant and animal life are visible in an overall setting that is minimally improved. The introduction of pavement into this environment ruins the atmosphere of the trail that so many find to be its most valuable feature. The SNET is also popular amongst local and out-of-town users precisely because it already allows for the shared use among equestrian, bicycling, and pedestrian interests. The full width of the trails in its natural state allow users to pass, travel side by side, and yield to one another as circumstances warrant. The proposed project, if it includes paving the trail, will require that people utilize the surface suited for their mode of travel, which during good weather and popular times of use may constrict traffic to narrow areas, moving at different speeds in a narrow single file. This represents a step backwards in terms of shared use of this asset. The seclusion of this net is welcoming to equestrians who can ride with relative ease of mind that excessive noise and speed of passing traffic will not upset their horses, enabling bikes designed for higher speeds on paved surfaces as well as motorized vehicles to utilize a surface that allows for higher rates of speed in a shared space creates the likelihood of significantly more conflicts between users that have very different parameters for safe use of the trail. Further, we reject the notion that a 5-foot wide trail is realistic for equestrian uses. The notion presented by the consulting engineers that the pavement will reduce the number of users of motorized vehicles using the SNET is hopelessly naive and completely contrary to our experience with ATV and trail bike riders in Douglas. Mountain biking is fundamentally different from street biking in many ways. The challenge of riding on a natural surface in rugged terrain attracts many mountain bikers to the SNET. These users can readily access more challenging trails across the SNET and thus encourages their use of the entire trail network in the Douglas State Forest. Pavement would substantially change their experience. Over the last several years, the sponsors of various events that cater to the equestrians, mountain bikers, and runners who prefer a rugged course have begun to gravitate to the SNET, and the Douglas State Forest is a suitable venue for their specific type of event. The project as proposed will all but eliminate the trail's appeal to their users. Presenters at the December 7th, 2021 public meeting also noted that pavement is not the only surface that would improve accessibility for all community members. These slides have disappeared from the version of the presentation posted on the DCR website. However, presenters were clearly heard saying that a stabilized aggregate surface would provide greater access across the full spectrum of the public that wants to be on the SNET and would comply with regulatory standards. Since an alternative to pavement would allow the goals of the project to be met without requiring a disturbance of the existing context and usage pattern on the SNET, we unequivocally reject the notion of paving the SNET. We ask that you reject this aspect of the project proposal and substitute stabilized aggregate and trail widening and enhanced maintenance to allow for a more accommodating and shared usage. Thank you for consideration, and then it would be signed by this board.
There are remote people who say they can't see or hear anything.
Good evening.
There's a remote person.
Yeah, is it possible people have the wrong?
Communicating okay?
Hal, yes, we see you and hear you. Good evening.
I'm staticky? That's the worst ever.
I don't know how.
I'll just take it right away.
Yeah, I'll just kind of.
Want this one?
No, just so it's not right in front of your face. I don't know if that will help.
It's always a good idea to quiet me down.
Can you mute him? Heard you very well as opposed to the last meeting, so. Okay, good.
Excellent. All right. Does anybody want to speak on the board first? Does anybody want to speak to the letter that we were planning on drafting? Any thoughts, comments, concerns?
I think it's addressed the,
There might be some wetlands issues with paving over part of the trail that's within the, 100 feet of the body of water as it moves through the park.
It's a valid point. Dave, you have any thoughts?
I don't. I'm very interested in hearing what we hear from the public here.
Tim, same with you?
Sure, let's hear from the audience, so
All right,
the citizens.
We will open it up to public comment, discussion, and concerns. I ask that you put your name and your address as a Douglas resident, or if not, please identify yourself as such. So, go ahead.
Yeah, Fred Fontaine, Charles Street, Douglas. I asked this question not just as a resident of Douglas, but as a taxpayer in Massachusetts. What is this going to cost? Nobody's said anything about this. I asked at the last Zoom meeting, didn't get an answer. I've been reaching out to DCR multiple times. They haven't responded once. Never got back to me. I reached out to Senator Fatman's office a week ago, no response. I think we're talking about stuff that if we have no idea how much it's going to cost, how can we talk about any of it?
It's a fair question, Fred. Unfortunately, we weren't made privy to it until what?
The day.
The day of the meeting itself, that we were actually notified that they were having the meeting. The town did not, well, the state hasn't disclosed any cost of the overall project to the town, nor are they asking the town for any funding on the project.
Is that a question?
That is.
It's a game of Jeopardy in
It
the
is.
form of a question. So my best understanding is that this project's being funded through a bond that was approved by the taxpayers across the Commonwealth on the ballot. The money under the control of DCR, and they scope out and let out their projects accordingly. Their approach here is really rushed. While we knew they were having a meeting on December 7th, they never sent the plans or the presentation document. So the only way we knew about it was to tune in at 6 o'clock, like a lot of people in this room did. And then they closed the comment period after 14 days instead of 21.
Yes, very
So
frustrating.
it's a little bit frustrating because the only way the board could react would be, this board could react was to talk about something that had just been released on the day it was released. And then they had to have comments in by tomorrow.
I think if all the taxpayers across the state, if they heard you're going to spend how much for what, where, that nobody really wants.
But they said 8 million, is what I heard them say. 8 million to go 6 miles.
Yeah, to my point exactly, this taxpayers in Massachusetts found 8 million to put a strip down the center of nowhere that nobody wants, they'd be pretty upset. Thank you.
All right. Do I have anyone else? Go ahead.
Jacob Schultzberg, 2 Stonehill Drive. I'd like to request that the board consider this letter as it stands null and void. The town administrator said himself that administrators and managers aren't allowed to give their personal opinion, yet he was given creative license to draft this letter without any public comment. Comments with this letter should be based on comments made by Douglas residents here tonight. Thank you.
Valid point.
All right. You may.
Lynn Koreski, Northwest Main Street, Douglas. I would like to confirm all of the comments that you made in your letter. I'll take them as my own. I brought along a list of my comments that I submitted to DCR. They included your points of safety, the unrealistic 5-foot natural surface compared to 10 feet pavement, very unsafe. And it really seems like Boston is making decisions for an area that they don't know anything about. Out here in Douglas, we're more rural in nature, and our user groups on the Sinet are so much more diverse than what you get in the urban areas. So we would be putting 5 or 6 major user groups on 5-foot width, while you have one user group on a 10-foot width, which makes no sense at all. I know Patricia, who was the person from the consulting firm, had indicated that their plan was to make the Sinet more accessible to a broader base of people, when actually what they're doing is they're putting the majority of the user groups on a much narrower strip and just leaving that 10 feet strip for the other. They're not factoring in any of the areas of endangered species. We have turtles that nest along the Sinet. We have endangered wildlife. We have lady slippers along there. And in short, it doesn't take much exploration in decent weather to find spotted salamanders, which is reaching, but you get the point. There's a lot of flora and fauna there that shouldn't be disturbed. And with the water on both sides, there's no space for us to really make it safe for those species as well. So that was the first issue. The second issue is that the parking has not really been addressed. They have 2 small areas for this 6-mile stretch, one on Depot Street, one on South Street. As you know, in town, we have people coming with snowmobiles, horse trailers. We have even some trailers that bring mountain bikes in. Where are all of these vehicles going to go? If DCR is attracting in new user groups, it just means more traffic. And as it is on the busy weekends, we end up with people parking down the side of the road because there's no trailhead parking. So what's going to happen to us when we have all of these people coming out from the urban areas to get on our little section of trail, when there are already so many other paved trails around Milford, Uxbridge, Lincoln, Woonsocket? I mean, there are a lot of them close by. We don't need this in our little area. What they're doing is they're taking a stretch of our country, which is basically one of our most prized resources, and they're going to turn it into something like what's everywhere else. And they're taking away the special attributes that we have. So it's a resource that I want to see preserved. And I'm not just an equestrian. I recommend your points about equestrian use and safety, and there's a real long history of equestrian use. As a matter of fact, Bay State Trail Riders Association Association has put a significant amount of money into the SNF over a long term, and I'm sure Becky Gallagher, the president of Bay State, will be talking in more detail about that. But right now, force uses are a big part of it, but that's not it. There is a whole large group of people who use it for mountain biking, for dog walking, for hiking, the family outings where they bring their kids out to see nature. All of that is going to be forced on 5 feet while the bikers zoom by at 25 to 40 miles an hour. And then your comment about it being naive that the motorized vehicles won't go on there, that's not far-fetched at all. I mean, just imagine what it's going to be like to speed. And now you have a new element, you have motorized electric bikes now that will be going on it as well. It's crazy. So those are my two most important points. I have a whole list, there's more, but those I'll focus on for now.
All right, so in summation, you're opposed.
I am.
Thank you. I'll get right, I'm just kind of working my way through, if that's all right. Go ahead.
Steve Sanders, I live on 28 Maple Street. We just bought the property about a year ago. We bought the property because of the trails. We have horses, we have dogs. We walk the trails almost every day. My question is, was there any environmental study done on this? And could we see what it was? Because when I was building a house, I was hiking the trails, not the depot parking lot, but the other one, and I have pictures, I have bunches of pictures of the turtles, and they lay their eggs right in the middle of the trail, right in the middle. And there was days I saw 12 turtles, different turtles laying eggs in the trail. Over a 2-week period, every day I went up, I saw turtles laying eggs right in the middle of the trail. So is there an environmental study that was done?
I honestly, as much as I'd like to be able to, I honestly couldn't answer that.
I think that's a good question to ask them, because doing something like that in an area like this, you think that they need to do an environmental study. Thank you.
No, thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't give you an answer to that. It's just kind of a reminder, it wasn't this board's project. We're here to try and represent the community and send a message as best we can. Can I address hers and get right back to you? Go ahead.
Becky Gallagher, Glen Street, Bay State Trail Riders Association. So I'm wearing that hat tonight. Just a little bit of history. Our founder, Bay State Trail Riders Association, Ed Wally, is the one that worked tirelessly to convince the state to purchase the railroad bed, that abandoned railroad bed, because he knew it would make a great multi-purpose trail for everybody. He didn't want to see it paved, even though we're an equestrian organization, he didn't want to see it paved, so all the users could use it and have no problem with it. And that's the goal that we worked for. We also worked towards getting it designated as a national recreational trail in 1994 in perpetuity. So I don't know if you guys knew that designation existed or not, but it does.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It's a national recreational trail. It's a designation under the National Park Service. We started working on improving that railroad bed in 1989, and to date we have put over $128,000 worth of grant money, volunteer labor, and donated equipment and man hours to get this as nice as it's looking right now. Another project that we did as a part of our grant with the National Park Service in 2014 was a report called The State of the SNF, which was surveyed from Douglas all the way to Franklin, to the State Forest. And I have that report sitting at home. Nowhere in that report does it mention it for improvements, paving any section of it. It will say, in this section here, there's some holes, could be filled in with some gravel, topped off with 3/4 inch minus gravel, and have it compacted, but this whole thing is not mentioned paving. We don't want it paved. The Franklin-Bellingham sections have been finished off with soil stabilizer that's ADA compliant. You go over the line into Connecticut, and their finished surface is stone dust. So I don't know why DCR wants to put pavement in the middle of this. you would think DCR did that in there, they would want to keep up with the continuity. So I'm very confused as to why they're doing that. Going back to the 5-foot wide path, that's going to be an issue with riders and people going in opposite directions. 5-foot wide is not wide enough for horses to pass. We are going to be on the pavement. If I'm riding my horse down the railroad bed, I'm doing a nice easy canter and she spooks, which she does, she'll just jump off to the side, like 3 or 4 or 5 feet, and then we just keep on going. I'm okay on the railroad bed right now because it's a natural surface. If I'm doing that next to a pavement and she jumps off, spooks over onto the side there, there could be a distinct possibility of her slipping on the pavement and going down. I don't want to see that happen. And we canter, it's when there's no one else out there. I've got plenty of room, I've got plenty of sight line, and it's wide enough that I know it's safe for me and anyone else that's possibly out there. We also have carriage drivers that use Cincinnati. One of the ladies, one of our members, she's 80-some odd years old. She's out there driving with her little mini, and that's for her to go miles. It's her way of getting around, her mode of transportation. If that's paid, that's not going to happen. You already mentioned events. We use our events to raise money to continue the maintenance on the railroad bed. So that will be out the window. And she talked about the South Street parking. I was actually privy to some of the plans earlier, the beginning of the year. And the original plans for the South Street parking actually had accommodations for horse trailers. That has disappeared. I don't know why, but it has disappeared. And I also, in my comments to DCR, the Douglas State Forest is classified as a reserve, which means under DCR classification of trails, you have class 1 to class 5. So in a reserve, class 1 to class 3 is allowed for improvements. I think pavement is going to fall outside of the class 1 to class 3 classification for the Douglas State Forest, which is a reserve. Those are my comments. Yeah, we're against it, so, just so you know.
All right, thanks for bottom line. I appreciate it. You had some comments.
My name is Lee Pereski, I live at Northwest Main Street. A question for you. DCR, I mean, if we kick up our heels as much as we want, can they ultimately do whatever they want?
Yes.
So we can write all the letters and complain all we want, but if their mandate is they're going to pave that, they can still do it.
Pretty much. You would hope that they wouldn't. You would hope that they would listen to what the local residents in the town at which they're doing an impact to. But at the end of the day, I believe they pay the pilot money, they take care of the property, they can do what they want with it.
The only town board that has jurisdiction over this project is the Conservation Commission, within their narrow mandate.
So what was that again?
There is only one board in the town that we think has jurisdiction over any aspect of this project, Conservation.
So that's the only hope, if they really want to push this through, to stop this.
Well, you always have hope, because the comment period should be more than a mere formality. But who knows?
You already told the way they jammed this through last minute, they were trying to avoid that.
I think. Understood. We just want to have some faith that we still live in America and that the community will be listened to. But if not.
In this room that is for it, I'm just curious. Okay. You should listen to those.
Not for pavement. Yeah, for what?
Well, I'm for repairing the trails. I have no trouble with that at all. I just don't want to pay.
Well, we had some folks that are for the project, so Carol, we'll start with you right here.
Yeah, I'm for the pavement because I think, mountain bikes are great, but they cost a lot of money. If you've got a paved area, you can have a very inexpensive, cheap little English bicycle with narrow wheels. Families could bring their kids. Kids could have training wheels on their bicycles. They could go on that because it's paved. And the other thing too is I think it's good to keep the horses and the things separate, because the horses have a tendency to like to poop, and then you end up having to drive through the horse poop. And I've never seen a horse person with a pooper scooper. They just kind of just leave them there, you know?
They need a big cart behind the horse, I think.
Yeah. So, you know, I just think, you know, that there are a lot more people who can afford an inexpensive bicycle than can afford a horse. And even though, you know, there's a lot of people here, and I understand where they're coming from, and they love what they do. They have, and when they say there's a lot of places for bicycles, well, quite frankly, there's a lot more places and horses for Douglas than what you could ride with a regular bicycle. The whole state forest is loaded with trails that horses can use, and I don't think I could go on it with, I could not ride it on a bicycle. I'm sure some 20-year-old on a mountain bike could, but I certainly could not. And so I think that, you know, it's something that I could see families in our town using, you know, with people with young children, being able to go over there with their kids and stuff. And, you know, I mean, I see bike lanes alongside the road. I wouldn't let my kid go on a bike lane beside the road. I don't think any of you people would either. Just not safe with cars. So I think it'd be a good thing for families in this town and for older people who are not too what can I say, robust.
All right, thank you.
And then again, as far as the environmental stuff, you run it into that no matter. I mean, if you've got an environmental thing, if you're going to be paving it or you're going to be working on the dirt, you're in the same situation. You've got to follow those rules.
Okay. You had your hand up.
Hi, Kathy Richards on Maryland Drive in Douglas. And I hear what you're saying, but I don't know when the last time you bought a road bike was, but they're not cheap. I have one and it's not cheap. And I see it every day. I see big families, strollers, walking down Smith all the time. I don't see any limitation to anyone going on the trails because it's not paved.
Thank you. All right, I got all kinds of hands up. I'll start here. I'm going to work my way over to you, I promise. I'm not ignoring you.
Good evening, Jacob Schultzberg again, 2 Stonehill Drive. I'm just going to read a letter that I have, just so I make sure I hit all my points.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Before you have repeat comments from individuals, could you go through and have everybody have a chance to speak once?
I can do that. Do you mind holding for a few minutes so I can get a couple other comments, Jake?
I'll wrap you up.
Just to be fair to the audience, Jake.
That's cool.
John Inferno, 1 Stonehill Drive. I'm not affiliated with the town tonight whatsoever. It's my own opinion. I grew up right next to the rail bed on Southeast Main, actually when the train, that's how old I am, the train went by.
You're not supposed to admit that, John.
Well, I'm still, pardon my English, but with the state when they took it away from us on our dirt bikes in the 80s. We grew up there, we respected it, what have you, it is what it is. Quite honestly, I don't think 10 feet of pavement is the way to go, you know, but I think there could be a compromise where there's enough room for the horses, we have 2 nieces that are handicapped, one's in a wheelchair, she could go down and ride on the pavement. You know, just to forget about the whole idea, because, and I appreciate the horses, I watch them go by the house, it absolutely is. But just to have it a horse trail, and we can compromise, in my own opinion, is how I'd like to at least see it considered. And to be quite honest with you, throughout the town, the state is going to do whatever they want, unfortunately, when it's all said and done. They will hear us, but we have Long Lake State Park. 90% of what they do up there is done under their own free will, not by what we want them to do. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Sue Sanders, I live on 28 Maple Street.
Oh, you were hidden behind that chair. I didn't.
I know. I see people all day long because we're right on the trail, and I see street bikes, mountain bikes, kids with bikes riding up and down the trail. there's runners, there's people that get out first thing in the morning and they're using that trail to run, to bike, the horses. It's just used by kids, bicycles that are going at higher speeds. Kids are all over the place. And they're going to run in front of a bike can hit them. You know, it's just a safety all the way around. People with bad knees, bad hips, walking on concrete is not good. It hurts. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I can attest to the bad knees part.
Yeah.
You in the back.
Hi, Carrie Jacqueline, Webster Street. I was just going to comment about when it gets warmer out and the paving gets very hot. And even if you go to Uxbridge, they have the paved trails into Blackstone and stuff like that. And people will only use it very early in the morning or late at night because it's so hot that all the heat that gets thrown off from that pavement, you can't walk your dog on it because it'll burn their paws, and then it's too hot for people to walk on it because of the heat rising off the pavement.
Thank you.
And then we have the Julia Taddy, Franklin Street, 88 Franklin Street. And just on that, winter's coming. So then we have, if it's paved, there's much more ice. At least if it's a more natural surface, there's less possibility for anybody to slip and fall, bad knees or not.
Did you hear that, John? They're wishing snow and ice on you now.
There goes the budget.
I did hear that the Milford trail that they have, the town is now asking for plowing to be done on those surfaces as well as police observation for trouble. I mean, it's a bigger town, but, you know, yeah, we're rural, but if we're bringing more people in, we're going to have more. So that's another expense perhaps to the town to consider.
Thank you. Yes.
Bonnie LePage on 39 Main Street. Up until a year ago, I owned the property from Depot Street to Franklin Street, and my new people who bought the property are sitting in front of me. I've lived there my whole life, and I've always used the trail. The work that the Trail Riders Association has done over the past 20 years is phenomenal. 10 years ago, you couldn't use that trail to ride your bike. Now it is so improved with the work that they've done. Just filling in the holes, making it accessible to, I ride my bike there all the time. I cross-country ski in the winter. I hike. I used to run my dog there all the time. The other issue that I'd like to mention is, I don't know if anyone has been on the bike trail from Woonsocket to Providence. That is tarred. That is in such terrible condition right now. Every time a tree root comes up through the pavement, it creates a hazard. I don't know that part of this proposal they have is to maintain what they tar. But if they don't maintain it any better than what they maintain the Rhode Island part of it, I mean, it is horrible. And I mean, it would break a horse's leg. It's almost broken my leg on a regular bike. And I'm not talking trail bikes, I'm talking road bikes. So that is another consideration, is are they going to have enough money to maintain what they tar? That needs to be addressed also. As it is now, it's easy to maintain. Or if it was improved to be stone dust or what the other part of the trail is, it would be much easier to maintain. So I think that should be a consideration also.
Thank you. I know you, Bruce.
Bruce Rio, 11 Churchill Road. A few things that others have addressed. So in your letter, you allude to that, you know, they may want to pave it, and I want to make it clear that in their invite, they specifically say that they're presenting a near final design of a fully accessible shared use 10-foot wide paved pathway. So in my opinion, they are very adamant that they want to pave it. So I think that should be clear that, you know, if the decision is to oppose pavement. It should be made clear that they are proposing pavement. The other thing someone asked about in EPA, and looking at the project timeline that they published, they say they completed environmental pre-consultation last winter. But they do have a NEPA filing, which I assume is Mass EPA, that they will be doing. I don't know, how does the town get involved with that? Anything?
So MEP is an extensive process, and there is a comment period for the public as part of the MEPA review.
Okay.
That pre-consultation was probably some paperwork they introduced the project to the MEPA reviewers. Right, it would have been part of 30% design, probably.
Okay. So my personal opinion is, yes, I would like to see the SNET improved. I do not want to pave. There's no need to pave it. An example of what I would like it to look like is the airline trail, like down in Pomfret, Connecticut, and south of Pomfret. It's a stone dust-like surface. All the current users that are using the SNET can easily still use the wide stone dust surface. I think it works very well. The pavement proposals don't work for many reasons that others have said. I'm a user of the SNET for all 4 seasons: mountain biking, hiking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, bringing the grandkids out. So,
Hiding from the neighbors?
Mostly just to, sorry?
I said hiding from your neighbors. That's what I would do.
Do you blame them?
No.
I'd like to see it improved only to the point of like getting the muddy, wet spots taken care of. But I understand that once the state comes in and starts doing stuff, they've got standards they want to get to. And as far as the state doing what they're going to do, yes, they're going to do what they do. They do have goals to increase rail trails. And I've used many of them, paved or unpaved. There's great ones throughout the state. I'm hoping they leave it unpaved.
Thanks, Bruce. See, I have the hands up. Oh,
Is everybody
actually,
else- everybody else done?
Is there anybody else that hasn't already spoken?
You're back to the beginning again.
I'm back to the beginning. Oh, no?
Fred started and.
I'm John Fontaine, Charles Street. I just sort of have a follow-up to the Bay State Trail Riders. You mentioned that national trail designation or something like that.
National Recreational Trail.
National Recreational Trail. Is that not something that can be a force to block the paving?
I would have to look into that, to tell you the truth. I honestly don't know.
Is there anybody that's remote that wants to speak on this quickly?
Yes. Hi, Bill Rossi, 41 Oak Street, Douglas. I'm a mountain biker. I've been up and down the entire trail from Franklin all the way to Pomfret. And just recently I rode the 18-mile stretch between Bellingham and Thompson. And I gotta tell you, there isn't a stretch of dirt that long anywhere else around, and it's gonna get destroyed by paving the middle 6 miles of it. The first time I rode the trail, I did it on a bicycle that cost no more than $100. I did the whole thing, so it's certainly accessible to people with inexpensive bicycles. I'd much prefer to ride on an unpaved surface where it's available. In fact, I moved to town to be close to the trail. I previously lived in Marville, and I moved to Douglas to be closer to the trail because I was coming here to use it so frequently. In summary, I'm opposed to paving the trail. I think it's going to damage the character of the state forest. It's going to cause problems, interactions between bicyclists and equestrians. At the moment, there's plenty of room for us to coexist, but that would become much more difficult. And there's already plenty of paved bike trails in the region. We don't need another one. And if you insist on riding a bike on a paved surface through the forest, well, there's Southwest Main Street. That works just fine for that. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else remote that wants to speak on this?
Hello?
Hey, Shirley.
Now we got you.
The floor is yours, Shirley.
Thank you. Shirley Nazinski on Oak Street. There's been a group of people in this town that fought a landfill for 11 years, went through the process of endangered species, and when I brought this up at the other hearing with the DCR, it was kind of like passed over, as if nothing was said about the endangered species. But thankfully, some other people brought up the fact that turtles laying eggs in the middle of the trail. Hey, let's keep it natural. You know, you walk on the street here, and if you have a dog, you have to go early in the morning or late at night because it's hot on their paws. And it's just, you know, let's keep it natural. We're not, city people, it's country people. People love to come out here. The state needs to put more money into maintaining the forest and Wallam Lake State Park. And if they want to do anything, maybe do some improvements on the parking areas for the horse trailers. It's great to see horses out there on the trail and through the forest. So I say, don't take it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. All right.
Turn it back, Jake.
Yep. Jake?
Chairman.
Yep.
Jacob Schulberg, 2 Stone Hill Drive, letter I wrote. I abut the Southern New England Trunkline Trail and all like it's my own backyard. Whether it's walking my dogs, mountain biking, going out to fish, or exercising, I use it daily. During the summer, I'm out there multiple times a day. Recently, there was a group of lost hikers that the fire department reached out to me and asked I'd be on standby to assist. The members know that I own search and rescue equipment and have a vast knowledge of the area, as I've assisted them several times over the years. I was able to provide first responders with directions that could accommodate their equipment, and they were able to make a timely rescue. The board has heard various comments from users of the trail who are opposed to this project, specifically from the Bay State Trail Riders Association. I can only think of one property along the trail that has horses, 38, beautiful property. For the most part, equestrian riders trail their horses to the area and leave when they're done riding, leaving behind large piles of pieces everywhere. Yes, it's organic, but it's an unwelcome sight and an obstacle to the majority of users. Out of all the recreational activities that occur on the SNET, horseback riding is the smallest percentage of regular users. Feelings aside, the board cannot ignore the facts on the ground. According to their own website, their #1 priority is keeping trails open for equestrian use. The SNET is owned by the Department of Conservation and Recreation and is open and available for everyone's recreational activities, to include horseback riding. Through the association's efforts, DCR has made it illegal for ATVs and motorized vehicles on the SNET and within the Douglas State Forest, which I fully support. However, there's now an attempt to restrict modern popular activities like riding a bike and rollerblading. What's especially sad is the state is trying to make this trail accessible under the Americans with Disabilities Act. I have 2 major concerns with the SNET currently. First is the lack of maintenance. I've lived along the trail for 6 years, and there's been no maintenance in most areas except for the removal of fallen trees and trimming of overgrowth and weeds once a year. I do commend the Bay State Trail Riders Association for the work they do across the area, but maintenance on the SNET has fallen short. Work is completed in targeted areas and focused on equestrian accessibility. After storms, I'm usually the first person out there removing down branches and trees. When overgrowth is cut, it is completed after DCR crews have time after the busy summer season. By this time, the path in several areas is narrow, and you are forced to walk through thick, tick-infested vegetation. As you walk along the trail, there are rocks that protrude out of the ground, creating tripping hazards. The lack of maintenance has created deep ruts and whaling from ATV use, poor drainage, sand and water, and constant muddy conditions that promote mosquito populations. I'd like to remind the board of the West Nile virus and the triple E threat that we face yearly. Once temperatures drop, the surface water becomes ice and creates serious slippery conditions. These concerns are no issue when riding along on a horse, but are a serious health and safety concern for every other daily user. My second concern is the ongoing illegal ATV use. The illegal ATVs are a constant nuisance and operate with no regard to the rightful users of the trail. Based on my life and professional experiences, I feel that the project as presented will deter illegal ATV activities. History has shown that if positive improvements are made to a problem area, undesirable activities naturally dwindle away on their own. The DCR can install barriers, but as long as rightful users can go through them, so can their bikes. The proposal will promote more positive users to the area. ATV riders will see that the area is far more open to the public and would likely avoid the area. You'll never be able to deter 100% of ATVs, but this proposal should see a significant impact. As long as environmental and wildlife concerns are mitigated, I feel that this proposal will be a positive addition to the town. The SNET is not just in the state forest, but across the streets and neighborhoods that lack sidewalks and a safe place for families to walk and exercise. The project proposal would best improve the trail conditions while providing equal access to all rightful users. The SNET is already paved in portions outside of Douglas, and this has proven to be a positive addition to those towns. Concerns have been raised about high-speed road-style bikes creating conflict among users. These riders will not overload the SNET as they generally train and ride on roadways where road races occur and at a significantly longer distance than 6 miles. This proposal and its location in town provide families with a great place to teach their child to ride a bike, teens a safe place to ride to a friend's house on the other side of town, and those with cruiser-style bikes a place for a casual and safe ride. The plan as presented will not reduce any length of equestrian rideable trails within the town of Douglas, and there are miles of them. The SNET right-of-way provides a clear width of approximately 20 to 30 feet. A 10-foot paved path would not be a significant reduction of natural surface for equestrian use. Given the proposed 5-foot path, and if proper maintenance is completed, the rideable natural surface would be at a minimum equal to the proposed paved portion for a majority of the SNET. Questions have been asked about the impact of public safety departments. The DCR is proposing a paved pathway designed for pedestrian traffic and with adequate equestrian access, not a highway across the entire right-of-way. I do understand and respect that I am not the only voice, and there are those that are against this project. However, if this project is changed to a gravel or soil-based surface, I will give it a week until ATVs are out exploring and destroying it. The SNET should be laid out for equal benefit to everyone, not to just best accommodate a small percentage of overall users. I encourage the board to support the DCR plan as presented. Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
So Jake, there would be another surface that you would be in favor of if there wasn't paving? Compressed gravel or something? I'm not an expert, but...
I would prefer the pavement, but if there's a way, to make it work.
Okay, thank you.
But I do feel the pavement would be the best to improve the conditions as is.
Understood, thank you.
Who was up first? Becky, go ahead.
I just want to make a quick point that the surface in Franklin and Bellingham uses a soil stabilizer with an aggregate that's ADA compliant, but it keeps it at a natural surface, and it's ADA compliant and also friendly for horse country. So you hit a home run with that for everybody.
To the chair, I hear that.
What's that?
I hear the comment.
Okay.
You had that guy in the middle, and then you had
Yeah, I'm gonna get you and then Carol and...
The one thing that we don't even talk about is, all these oak trees have died. And the trails, every time the wind blows, you go out on the trail. I walk the trail every day. Usually up to 4 or 5 miles a day. And the trees are just starting to fall. They're just keeping falling over the trail. You can't ride a bike on those kind of trails anyway. Yeah, hiking and everything, that works fine. who's gonna take care of all these? These aren't little trees, these are trees like this. The caterpillars just wiped them out. You can walk down the trail and they all grow this way over the trail. You know, that's how they grow, to get their light. They're gonna all be falling all of the thing. The other thing is, I question is him saying that the bikers will not want to ride on the trails once they're paved. I think there'll be more of the illegals riding on this trail than there were before, because they're gonna be able to go faster on the surface, and this is not gonna, taking care of these trails, you know, is not gonna deter people from riding the motorbikes and down on the trail. It's gonna bring more of them on, I think. And I just question where he got that, you know, that's not, I don't believe that.
John, can I ask you to throw your firefighter hat on for a second?
Sure.
What is the state doing with the deadfall? They usually just leave it?
No, they have a crew, but it's minimal. They ride around on ATVs and open the trails that way and just move the stuff inside. You know, and actually they burn wood in the, on the wood lot, the fire barn side, Wallen Lake side. That's how they heat the building in the winter out there. But the wood that they cut in the trails throughout the, when the stuff falls and what have you.
Thanks, John.
Fred's up.
Is it? He's hiding back there. I'm gonna grab Carol and then Fred. Does that work for you, Fred? Sure. Carol, go ahead.
I just want to say something about the endangered species things. Everyone, be very careful with that, because you'll end up, and none of you using it. You know, it's, you're going to say, oh, the trails are there, they're going to say you can't ride over it with your horses. And if you think that's not so, talk about people that live down by the ocean that have to be escorted to their homes every day when a certain bird is laying eggs. So from anybody that wants to use it, just be quiet.
Thank you, Carol. Fred?
Thanks for holding this meeting tonight. But my question is, the comments made tonight, where do they go? Where are you guys going to take these comments to? And is this, can we go to the, you know, our senators, our representatives, and even the governor's office? Somebody must have an in at the governor's office somewhere. Where do we go with this? What do we do?
Well, if we actually had an in at the governor's office, we'd be getting a lot more done in Douglas City.
Yeah, 3 million reasons why the governor's all right. To answer your question a little bit, yeah, absolutely. There are additional steps that can be taken. I would think the first step was to get the 5 signatures on a letter, because, you know, personally, are we moving towards our discussion now, Mr. Chairman?
We are.
All right, I think we sacrifice an awful lot to live in a rural community, and the idea of paving the SNED is offensive to me. That's just how I feel.
You're here. All right. Before I close discussion down to the...
I would say certainly in the letter, we can ask them to investigate alternate surfaces here. We've heard a lot about other surfaces, aggregate surfaces and everything that would meet everybody's needs, but wouldn't be pavement. I don't know if we can encourage them to do that. The gentleman in the back read that they're pretty much sold on pavement. I don't know if we can try to push them away from that and look at another surface that might meet everyone's needs.
I mean, ultimately, I mean, I like where your head's at. I mean, I want something that's going to maintain the overall aesthetics of the trail, because we are a rural community. Right. But I definitely want something that's going to be user-friendly to everybody.
The other thing that
hit a home run, that'd be great.
The other thing that concerns me is maintenance, and the state builds wonderful things, and they have ribbon cuttings, and everybody comes and shake hands, and then they walk away and they leave it. We all know that. I don't, you know, if they put pavement in there, the regular wear and tear of weather and trees and everything else, I don't see them coming in every year to look at it and say, oh, that area needs to be touched up. It's not going to be.
I give them about 11 minutes, and then they'll gift it to the towns for us to maintain it.
Thank you. Probably charge us too.
Yeah.
You should check in with Hal.
Yeah, Hal, you there?
Yes,
Do you have any thoughts or comments, Hal?
I think everybody's pretty much covered it.
You having fun in Florida?
Oh, yeah. Here, though.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, sometimes the old adage is, careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Yep.
So I've lived in this town for about 40 years. And when I first came to this town, that trail was impassable. I mean, you could, it was not nearly the way it is right now. And because of lots of different groups, not just Bay State, and I'm not in a question, but because of lots of different groups that did a lot of maintenance with DCR, by the way, they improved the trail so much that I think now DCR is looking at it and say, hey, we should pave it now. I mean, it would be interesting to see if nothing had happened, if they'd even be considering this.
Yeah.
And my personal feeling is if they do go ahead and pave it, that's going to end equestrian use on that trail. 5 foot, that's just reality. And the other that's going to happen is these groups that help maintain it tirelessly with a lot of money, there is no way they're going to spend any money on those trail systems, not those. So what's going to end up happening?
Double the people in the state forest.
Right.
Double the trash.
And you've kind of seen what's happened at Wallen Lake. 25, 30 years ago, Wallen Lake was a beautiful, beautiful lake, a great resource. You know, now, the amount of maintenance and time that's spent on that lake is unbelievable in the summer. And I just think it's a really poor idea. And I respect everyone's opinion on lighting them. I've got it. But I think there's other resources and other services you can utilize to accomplish things.
Close the public commentary part about it, bring it down to our deliberations and discussions as to how to cater or draft or add additional comments to what we intended to. We'll start down there. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
The letter that Matt had drafted, even though we gave him liberties to draft the letter, has seemed to capture all the feelings of the general public, with the exception of people that are in favor of it, obviously. But I would think that there should be some exploration and to see if there's any other alternative surfaces or maybe reducing the size of the pavement area. There has to be some sort of compromise in this. Not trying to slight anybody that would be in favor of it. But to have a 10-foot wide path, I've been on that trail a few times, and I don't think it's consistently 20 to 30 feet wide for 6 miles. No, allow me to speak. And to put a 10-foot wide path in there that's pavement is going to greatly reduce the use from a group that's spent a lot of time, just as this gentleman just said. Without their efforts, it wouldn't be what it is today.
Big fan of compromise, I'll say that.
So just so, the last 2 paragraphs of the letter, and it may be too late in the letter, specifically call out the stabilized aggregate solution. Because it was presented by the DCR project team, and then the last paragraph starts off, since an alternative to pavement would allow the goals of the project to be met without requiring disturbance of existing contact. So stabilized aggregate has been used on the SNET. It's in Bellingham. It's the same surface continuous all the way across. It's an aggregate that's stabilized with a polymer and then compacted. But it's ADA compliant, but it's not pavement. It's repaired in a different way. It deteriorates in a different way. If that is the board's intent, that you want to more advocate for that more clearly, then it should be put up in the first couple of paragraphs of the letter so that nobody who only reads the first paragraph doesn't get your message. That's why I hold out hope. They've used it on the SNET, so they know they have a problem.
Over the evolution of that trail, it wasn't that long ago that it was a majority of it was 3/4 or even larger stone that they had used on there. Now they have it pretty much of a stone dust type material, so it's a tighter bond to it. It's more user-friendly to everybody, not just horses, but
Well, I mean, I like the idea of the aggregate with the polymer, because I think the intent, as much as I never want to try and divine the intent of politicians at the State House, but for DCR is for use of all, not some, because by paving it, you're opening it up to one group, but closing it off to another. To where if you can find a solution out there to where it's genuinely, like, it appeases everybody, it's not perfect, but it makes it so it is able to be used by all parties, I think that's kind of a win, at least in my opinion.
yeah, unfortunately, because of the way it was presented to us, nobody's been afforded the opportunity to understand what the different types of materials are. So the majority of the people are at a disadvantage to understand what we're even talking about. So if you're only comparing dirt with asphalt, that's an easy comparison in your head. But if you don't understand what this aggregate is with the polymer base, it's kind of a moot point.
What do you think, Tom?
Well, I think I said what I think. I'm all for improvements. I've enjoyed the SNET. I've enjoyed many trails within the state park. So I'm appreciative of the idea that DCR wants to come in and improve things. I think the paving is completely the wrong direction. I'm open to the different surface. However, again, we live in Douglas. Right? The beauty of our rural nature is that we're in fact rural and we don't have some of this stuff. Right? We bring in pavement, right? We're getting people from East Providence that would normally do East Providence. They're banging out, a day at the park, which, may or may not be the most desirable thing for the people of this town. Matt, it's writing a letter like this and getting 5 independent-minded people to sign it is a difficult thing. There are some things in here that I may not have chosen, but I'm prepared to sign this letter tonight.
The only thing I would suggest if you're going to move forward with this is to take Matt's suggestion and move these last 2 paragraphs up towards the front of it.
I would agree with that.
Sure.
Do you have any additional thoughts, Mr. Vice Chairman?
I think I've spoken my mind.
Then I would say we do have a recourse. We always have a political recourse. Our state senators, our state representative should hear from anyone that wants to weigh in because, at the end of the day, it is a relationship business. And if people hear from a lot of people, maybe phone calls can be made and things can be tempered and maybe shifted in the direction that I think the majority in this room want.
Mr. Davis?
Two issues to me are the maintenance issue. I think that's a really strong reason to be against. And then secondly, winter conditions. I can see the paved area developing ice much more than the unpaved area. Black ice and other things on it could be a hazard. People want to use it year round.
You have a hand up.
All right.
Can we move this?
Yeah, just one more.
Yeah,
one more and then move it.
Would you be able to add to your letter something about the parking issue? Because I do see that as being a problem for the town.
Just get the handy, get your pencil out. Here it comes.
Take notes.
So everybody's comments are due tomorrow. So in order to get comments in timely for the select board, we need to finish this right away in the morning and ship it off.
Okay.
So Selectman Davis suggests maintenance and winter issues. You want to move the advocacy for stabilized aggregate up front so it's not missed.
Correct.
And the parking design, I didn't put it in here because when the discussion did occur at the select board meeting, I offered, do you want to comment on any of the other stuff? And there was no pavement. The parking design is tough. It would be very hard to situate a horse trailer and unload animals the way they have the parking lot.
It's inadequate by design.
It wouldn't be safe.
Jake had his hand.
Jake, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, maybe can we perhaps recommend like a strict, if it's not going to be asphalt, if it's going to be a soil-based maintenance program that is going to take care of it going in the future, because the ATVs, they're going to destroy it. And I'll gladly work hand in hand with you guys to do my part on my end. I have a vast knowledge of construction and tractor use.
To add to that, not just if it's an alternate material, but if they're going to do pavement, I would like to see maintenance on that as well.
Yeah. Put bold, highlighted in caps, maintenance.
Can I skip the all caps, because that's really irritating?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to get to Fred. Go ahead, Fred.
I'm still unclear as to, this letter is going to the DCR? That
Correct.
you're preparing it from the board?
Yes.
I personally think they've made up their mind, they're going to read and go, whatever. Can the board also reach out to our to the political solution, as the board reach out to our senators and representatives and the state, and the governor, this same stuff that we're talking about?
Mr. Chairman, I would encourage
Individually,
the
I
people
have.
in the room to enter in all their comments or whatever tomorrow by the deadline, as well as reach out to their politicians if that's what they choose to do.
For those of you who have submitted, are you aware of the mechanism? So there is an online form that you fill out.
Yes, but that's going to DCR.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to make sure you don't miss it. If you want to weigh in on it, pro or con, that's how you.
Yeah, I just didn't want people to misunderstand and think that it's only the board's responsibility.
Right.
To submit the comments, that it's important that everybody submit their comments.
Would that be something possible to, as a board? I think it might hold more weight coming from the board. I think we've all probably reached out to our senators and reps already. I think as a board, it might hold more weight.
Yeah, we'll carbon copy everybody on the email and follow up.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Just one more thing on environmental issues. If they have not done an environmental issue, then I think you ought to be asking them to postpone this until they have done an environmental issue.
Mr. Rio actually addressed that. They did do the environmental survey initially, and then they're doing it.
Where is it?
I'm sorry?
Where is it?
You,
It needs to be made available.
No, it's a precondition report. It
It's a
wasn't.
precondition
It's not
report.
MIPA. They got to do MIPA after they finalize their plans. So that'll be part of the MIPA filing, will be the finalized plans.
So they're going to finalize this after they...
After they get comments.
Environmental impact.
Yeah. Well,
Before they finalize.
Well, it's chicken or the egg, right? If you're a regulator, what do you want me to approve? You need to submit something that's final, and I'll tell you yes or no. I can see their point of view at MIPA. They need an actual set of plans to react to. Alternatives isn't their business. It's up to the project proponent to say what they want to do, and then the regulator will respond to that.
Last two questions.
You said that 3 times, but anyway, it's good. Just like the
It's been a while since we've had people in the audience.
Yeah, I'm out of practice.
I'm not quite sure how to act.
So,
I think he's enjoying it way too much, and he just wants everybody to stay, but.
can you guys all come back tomorrow, too?
Careful when you wish for.
The DCR website, when you make your comments, you're limited to only 2,000 characters. So if you have any real legitimate comments to make, they're probably not going to fit in there, no matter how concise you are. So that's one issue. The other issue is, as a town representative, I think it would be beneficial if you two went to the governor and to the senator and the rep. I know a lot of us have already written to them, and I got a response from both the senators and the representative's office. And they said that they have received a lot of opposition and that they cannot support this proposal in its current format. Just an FYI.
Yeah, so, yeah, Matt, when he sends our letter along, he'll be CCing Representative McKenna and Fatman, and if we could, like, send it to Lieutenant Governor Polito's office, or...
Matt, are you comfortable with the tweaks that we've made? All right, so with that, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that this board endorse Matt's letter as it was discussed tonight.
Made and seconded. Honestly, our last question, go ahead.
I
I don't want to make the parking issue just about horse trailers, because it's not. I mean, they want to increase the usage, and those parking lots are already pretty full. So if they're intending to, increase usage and not increase any of the parking, then that's a problem for the town as well. People are going to be lining the streets and all residential areas. So I don't want it to be just focused on horse trailers, because they can just do that in one little group,
So adequate parking.
Sufficient.
Thank you. Sufficient adequate parking. Not
Sufficient. No adequate, sufficient.
Sufficient?
Sufficient.
I like adequate better.
You're the chair.
You have a motion.
All right, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that matter? Seeing as none, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Bone and I.
Morris, aye.
Cortez, aye.
Davis,
All right, with that, my favorite. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Can I have a roll call vote?
Fitzpatrick, aye.
Bone and I.
Morris, aye.
Cortez, aye.
Davis,
All right, and that's it. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and feedback this evening.